I'm going to go in the order that I saw the hands. Okay, so we're going to go
You can tell me.
hoop earrings person with the nice manicure right there. They're the fourth seat in. Ponytail. And then we're, I forgot your name. Gretchen, and then we're going to go to Gretchen, okay? Who? Rachel. Or Gretchen. Rachel or Gretchen, whichever one is closer. You.
Hi, my name's Kat. It's really nice to meet you.
Hi, Kat.
Hi. So I'm actually about to put out my first kind of Riot Grrrl inspired fanzine, and I've also been working in the metal and hard rock space for about a year now. And I just feel like in my head they've been compartmentalized into two very different worlds, and I really admire how you've been able to kind of combine them. And I just wanted to get your insight on between Riot Grrrl, the Riot Grrrl movement, and then feminism in underground spaces now, where are the consistencies and kind of where do you see it headed?
Well, first, have you read Lena Dawes' book? Do you know who Lena Dawes is? She is a wonderful, really deep, super knowledgeable Black woman critic, and has an incredible memoir of what it's like to be in metal spaces as a Black feminist. And it's memoir too, as well as that. I would start there. Where is feminism right now, and where is it headed within music spaces? Maybe?
Yeah, within like underground spaces, but then also how is that impacting feminism in the industry?
Oh God. Well, I am pretty far from the industry these days, thank God. Here's what I see and know to be different these days is that I think there is a lot more acceptance for, interest in, and room for, generally speaking, feminist work. And I think there's a lot more interest and acceptance of it, generally. But that does not mean that there is not still rampant misogyny in all of those spaces. I think it's been really, really interesting to me in the last couple of years to see Riot Grrrl getting kind of rediscovered and repurposed and reutilized, especially in different genres, and bringing it outside of this kind of, cloistered, primarily sort of white space, and being woven more deeply, especially into just different genres, but then also seeing it take on some of the things that it really were absent in the first place, which is, just being a lot more intersectional and really deepening its, oh God, I'm not gonna say praxis, but like just deepening its praxis. There we go. But just, weaving together, Black womanist traditions, bringing in other radical traditions within feminism, whether it is, a much, I also think it's just a much queerer space. And I think that strengthens it so much because it counters some of the inherent white feminism and hierarchies and classism that really were part of Riot Grrrl. So that's exciting to me to see these evolutions and reanimations and reclamations of it. Because I think for a long time, after Riot Grrrl sort of like imploded a little bit, people were like, well, Riot Grrrl failed because it's not here anymore. We just have Bikini Kill, we just have this, or we just have Sleater Kinney as like an evidence of it. And it's like, well, you know, movements aren't like always a means to an end. And to see it have, you know, literally 30 years later, still have it be a framework that empowers and endows people and gives them permission to be bigger in music cultural spaces and to be in community and really create like a viable community and a viable framework, because I think a lot of music, because it is inherently, a lot of these spaces are inherently imbued with whiteness and toxic masculinity and rape culture, all of those things actively work to dissolve community. And all of the things that these kind of nouveau Riot Grrrl ideas are pulling in are things that can sustain people and sustain people in music spaces.
Wow, thank you so much.
Thank you for your question. Okay, where are we going? Rachel Gretchen. Grachel. Gretchen.
All right, so I this is gonna be semi-autobiographical. As a young girl, as a young writer, I always knew that I had so much to say, but I never thought that anybody would care to listen. I think that because I was always like a songwriter, and it was always like emotional writing, personal writing was so easy for me, but that wasn't the only thing that I had anything to say about. Like, there were things that I was personally connected to, but there were things that I was watching going on, and I had so many opinions about them, and I felt so strongly about things, but I didn't know where to go with it. I didn't know where to put it, and I didn't think that anybody would want to hear like the opinions of a 16-year-old girl. And I'm almost envious of how like early on you started your career, because had I found the courage inside of myself, I would have started to speak my mind so much earlier. And like when you started, there was less space in the music scene and any scene for women, and yet you were still able to do it. And so I guess I just want to know, like, even like from starting then and continuing on through your career, like how did you continue to find the belief within yourself that what you were saying was worth putting out and that people were going to listen to it?
That's a great question. Yeah, we can't all start at 12 like Taylor Swift or whatever. You know, I used to think it was one thing, and now I realize it's another. So I've for a long time I would say I was a Montessori kid, and I learned by doing, and I valued, if you know about Montessori, one of the things is like, you know, when you're a little kid in Montessori classrooms, they let the kids carry around these trays that have like glasses on them, because they say, you know, you only have to break a glass once to learn how to be careful with it, and that works a lot better than telling people to be careful. And I was a Montessori kid until like 8th grade. And so I didn't have, I think, a very usual relationship with failure, with the risk around those things. I think I was kind of, I don't know if the right word is like inured, it just didn't hold that kind of sway. Now I understand at the ripe old age of 46, 46, I think. I'm gonna be 47 this year, okay. I have found out in recent years, like, come to understand the level of my neurodivergence. And if you know anything about sometimes how ADHD impacts women, it's like symptoms for women with ADHD didn't even appear in the DSM until the year I was out of high school. I got diagnosed like 2 years ago after reading a lot of stuff. One of the things is for, you know, people talk about like my ADHD superpower, how it can sometimes show up in women in particular, people who are with ADHD, is kind of almost like a weird resistance to outside opinion. It's also one of the reasons that sometimes women with ADHD are known for dressing more butch. Like these, sometimes it's just sort of almost like a, in some ways it can be like a lack of sort of feminine acculturation. That might be, I might not be phrasing it correctly. But once I started reading about that, I was like, oh, actually I think that's what it was, more than being a Montessori kid. It was just not what other people thought. Yes, it mattered to me. Yes, like any teenage person, I was like, you know, but it just, there was just these things that just didn't, like, failing at something, embarrassing myself, like, I just didn't have this sense that I needed permission. And as I write in my book, as I write in the afterword of my book, there was also this part of me that was like, I didn't really respect a lot of the yes, I was like in the music scene and stuff, but it was like, here's these like 38-year-old man writing a column, a literal column in a, you know, printed local music magazine about what a bitch I am. And I'm literally in 10th grade. Like, I was like, she thinks she can do anything. She's a gadfly and she's, you know, it's like, and I was like, oh, well then I'm doing it right. Because this dude is fucking freaked out by my presence. Me and my little lunchbox with my fanzines in it. Oh, this poor man. How upsetting for him. And it was just kind of like that. You know, I think because, you know, if we wait for permission to express ourselves, we'll literally be waiting our entire fucking lives. And so we have to show up for ourselves in that way, you know? And it sucks because you have to be pretty brave about it. And if social media was like a whole ding-dang thing when I was younger, I don't know if I would have had a career in the same way, but that, because I think it puts like a very intense kind of pressure on people. And I also think for people who are artists right now, artists of any sort, there's a really, there's a big social premium on making sure that your politics are very legible in every single thing that you do. And I think particularly when we are young artists, we need all the space to kind of like toddle out in the world and get it wrong. And it's, and right now as a culture, there's a lot of ways and spaces where as an artist, it's just, there's just a lot less of that room to just be existing and getting it wrong and figuring it out and not sort of defaulting into performing the right way, you know? And so I think for people who are young artists right now, it is a really, really particular set of challenges for this generation. Long story long, you just gotta do it. Just gotta hold your nose and say, I love you to yourself, which can be very, very difficult. I do that every day. It helps my self-esteem. No, for real.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna do this speed round style. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna limit my answers to 1, not 22 minutes. Okay, pass your mic to your friend right there who is right there. It's in your hand. Wait, you with the braids. You had a question. We're gonna do it. Come on. Let's just quick.
My question was, so I personally do a lot of music journalism, and since I'm like just starting out in the industry, I found it's a pretty easy way to like on the weekends just for me to write something. But I've noticed it's very hard to get my work monetized, even though I'm very consistently like contributing to many publications. So I was just wondering, like, how do you battle not getting your work monetized while like staying consistent? It's like you're putting out so much work for very little reward.
It's really exhausting. It was really exhausting the whole time that I was freelance. And how I kind of sustained myself and prioritized the work when I was in those spaces where I was making like, if I was making money at all, at sometimes, I was making like 10 cents a word, which maybe is even a lot still right now, I don't know. is that I prioritized working with editors and publications that I respected and people that gave a shit about what I was writing, so that at least if I was doing this for cheap or, you know, very little reward to it, that I was working with people that could help my writing grow. But it's hard, and it's really hard right now, and I can't imagine what it's like, because like literally there have been about 20 mass layoffs of culture journalism, including like, what was it, the today? Yeah, I mean, it was just like, it's you know, if you're not, and here's the other thing, if you're not making any money doing it, maybe just write for your, I don't want to say write for yourself, but like start a website with your other 2 critic friends, you know, and create community out of it. And send, and do your best writing there, and then send those clips to places and editors diligently and without apology.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Good luck. We need you. We're gonna do you did Hat have a question?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and then you, who I shook your hand in the back row. Okay, we're gonna go boom boom, and then it's bedtime for everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Charlotte. Thank you
Hi,
so
Charlotte.
much for coming to speak with us. This has been so inspiring and interesting to hear about your career journey. My question, kind of going back to what you were talking about with social media and artists having this pressure of having like the correct politics all the time. I'm thinking of Boy Genius right now, and how they're like a newer generation of like rock. I don't want to like generalize them, but like rock music, I guess. And they're kind of like bringing it into like a larger mainstream. Do you think because of the genre that they make and because of their queerness and like their backgrounds and like how their music is informed by like the type of music that we were discussing earlier, do you think they have a responsibility to kind of like bring awareness to women in music? Or do you think their presence as like a queer band, like being very successful, is enough?
Both. I mean, I think part of the reason that Boy Genius excites me, and this is kind of maybe all I never want to be like, you know, in a way they kind of have almost like a little bit of a, like a, I don't want to say Sleater Kinney problem, but like where it's like because there's not a lot of thing like them, they have to, you know, they have to be like the shiny thing, you know, they have to be the emissary. And also because they are queer, they are expected to, you know, a lot of stuff is, you know, lens through the prism of queerness, and that's really valuable. And, you know, there's also this part of me that because I came up at this certain time where it was just like, women musicians, queer musicians were really still quite marginalized within whatever their genre is or was, that they had to be like, you know, they had to be like the model citizen. And I remember really longing for a time when it wouldn't be a big deal. And so to me, some of that is what excites me about Boy Genius. And also the other thing I like is just like, it's like 3 really smart women, great songwriters, just working together. It really says something, because canonical music history tells us that women are just meant to be in competition with each other. And you even kind of see it still, because there's still, I think people have like put a hierarchy on like which of the Boy Genius is the more best of the Boy Genius, you know? And then there's also this part of me that's like, I see that like some of their concert tickets are like $350, and there's this like little part of me that's like, yeah, get that money. And then there's this other part that's like, oh my God, that's insane. So that's my answer.
I think so. So thank you so much for coming to speak with all of us.
Of course, anytime.
I know for myself, I've often found it difficult to put my thoughts and feelings about music into words, and you've made a career on writing about music, and so I was wondering if you had any struggles with that at times, and kind of how you combated that.
Like struggled just writing about music and figuring out what to say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like all the time. Still. when I struggle with it, there's two things. Sometimes I would be like, I would just have to be writing about something because it was like I was on deadline. One of the columns I had for a long time was that not a long time, like 2 years, I recapped The Voice for Rolling Stone. Stopped after like the Cassidy Pope season, so I'm like, oh gee. For something like that, when I was like, oh my God, this is due in 6 hours, and I was like nursing a baby and typing with one hand, and you just have to turn on the bullshit faucet. Like just be like, somebody's got to pay the rent. There's that, and then there's like the other side where I, write very thoughtfully. Sometimes if I can't think of like, I realize that sometimes if I don't, if I'm struggling to figure out what to say, I'm realizing this is not the right record for me to be writing about, right artist for me to be writing about. I really only pitched stuff where I had a strong perspective that I knew I could sustain for at least, 850 words or longer. And then there was times where I couldn't figure out what to write or say because I was just kind of burnt out. And in those cases, sometimes I didn't have time to like lie fallow and kind of like recoup. But what I would do is just read other writing, not even music writing, because if I felt shitty, it'd be like a little compare and despair, be like, why bother? I might as well quit. And, but what I would do is just read other kinds of writing that was like very nutritive to me, very rich to me. I would make sure that I was like, eating and sleeping responsibly and like, like just those sort of things, because those things have to be present so that you can write. And then also the other thing that it's not so much like I couldn't figure out what to write or what to say was the fear of failure and the fear of reading my own terrible first draft. I'm being so embarrassed at myself. But that eventually you just get past it, and it just, but it's the fear of both the blank page and the failure and all of that stuff. It's like you kind of have to pull yourself out of it and kind of sin boldly on the page. And the poet Denez Smith was for a while doing these like little live things on Instagram, and I'd literally take notes. They would just write, they would like answer questions or whatever. And Denez said about rough drafts and getting things on paper, just said, let it be bad, just get it down. And I wrote that on a piece of paper and stuck it on a nail above my desk. And that is the echo in every draft. But I don't write that much anymore. Well, I'm supposed to be writing a book. But I'm on like my 4th contractual extension. That's all the time we have.
I'm going to let you go to bed. I'm going to let everyone go to
If
bed.
anybody has other stuff they want to talk to me about or whatever, I'll stick around for a little bit.
Let's
I
thank
might be
Jessica
outside
Hopper.
smoking, but I will be here.
Thank you so much.